SMU's Rhett Lashlee challenges SEC dominance in college football playoff expansion debate. Rhett Lashlee, the head coach of SMU, has stirred up the growing debate around extending the college football playoff, but not without throwing a sharp critique at the SEC that's bound to spark some heated discussion. While Lashlee supports giving more teams a shot at the playoffs, he insists that no single Power 5 conference should be favoured with extra automatic bids, challenging the common narrative around college football's powerhouse leagues. Lashlee's frustration isn't new. Before last season's final committee vote, he openly criticised the playoff selection process for its clear brand and conference biases, suggesting that some teams get unfair advantages just because of where they play. Then, at the recent ACC Kickoff event, Lashlee didn't hold back in delivering a pointed message to the SEC, arguably the most dominant force in college football nowadays. SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey has praised his conference all off-season as the pinnacle of toughness and competition in college football. But Lashlee disagrees with that assessment, offering some compelling numbers to back his point. Since 1964, only 6 schools from the SEC have won the national championship, Lashlee said. Not a single different team since then. That's the ultimate example of being top-heavy, not having real depth across the conference. In other words, the SEC's dominance might actually highlight a lack of competitiveness beneath the surface, contrary to what many believe. Lashlee also made a strong case that teams like Miami, who boasted a 10-2 record last season, rightfully deserved a spot in an expanded playoff field if the ACC was going to be fairly represented. It's not even up for debate. The playoff should feature 16 teams, he argued. Football is special. We saw last year how home games in the playoffs brought fantastic energy, increased exposure, broadened the fan base, and gave more players and schools a chance to shine. He then pointed out an often overlooked statistic. Since 1990, only 3 conferences, ACC, Big Ten, and SEC, have produced national champions. In the last 15 years, the ACC is tied with the Big Ten for the second most championships won, each with 3. Yet this success rarely gets the recognition it deserves in discussions about power and prestige. Lashlee went further to say that if the playoff expansion stopped at 12 teams, the ACC would continue to secure multiple playoff spots every year, and Miami definitely should have been included last year as one of the 12 best teams nationwide. Back in December, when SMU was still in contention for a playoff berth, Lashlee openly praised the ACC's depth, highlighting how competitive the league really is, even after SMU's loss to Clemson in the ACC championship game, rendering their playoff hopes slim. Lashlee remained a vocal advocate for his team and the conference. Acknowledging that the final decisions were out of his hands, he said it would be criminal and just wrong not to include us. This isn't just about our team. It's about what college football stands for and the principles it embodies. Lashlee's advocacy got a break last season when SMU was compared against 3 SEC teams, Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina, all of who had 3 losses going into the selection. Despite this, the SEC team's brand strength often gives them an edge, which ties back into Lashlee's earlier points about bias and fairness. Here's where it gets controversial. Is the dominance of the SEC truly a sign of competitive excellence, or does it expose a lack of real parity within the conference? And should the college football playoff expansion reflect historic success, conference depth, or something else entirely? Lashlee's comments challenge the status quo, pushing fans and analysts to rethink what makes a league the toughest or most deserving. What do you think? Is the SEC's legacy as solid as its reputation claims, or is the conference overrated in playoff discussions? Should the ACC get more credit and automatic bids based on its championship history and depth? Jump into the discussion and share your thoughts. Do you agree with Lashlee's bold claims, or is there another side to the story? Why SMU should embrace the CFP Selection Committee. Here's a bold statement. The College Football Playoff CFP Selection Committee is under fire, but instead of criticising them, teams like SMU should be celebrating their decisions. And this is the part most people miss. The committee's role is more crucial than ever, yet it's being unfairly scrutinised. Let's break it down. The CFP finds itself in a tricky spot, caught between the debate over automatic bids and the growing criticism of the selection committee. While some argue for a more structured playoff system, others question the committee's very existence. But here's the irony. SMU, a team that directly benefited from the committee's decision last year, is now among those questioning its value. But here's where it gets controversial. SMU coach Rhett Lashlee, instead of applauding the committee for including his Mustangs in the 2024 playoff, has joined the chorus of critics. Why? Lashlee argues the committee is inherently flawed due to human bias, suggesting that no other major sport relies on a committee to select tournament participants. But is that a fair comparison? After all, college football's unique landscape, with its diverse conferences and limited crossover gains, makes the committee's role indispensable. Lashlee also took a jab at the SEC, claiming it lacks depth despite its dominance. Yet he overlooks the fact that the committee's purpose is to evaluate teams across conferences, a task made harder by the very differences he highlights. For instance, SMU's inclusion last year over teams like Alabama and Clemson showcased the committee's ability to weigh factors beyond conference prestige. And this is the part most people miss. Even with potential biases, the committee operates with safeguards, like Arkansas AD Hunter Yurachek recusing himself from SMU discussions due to a conflict of interest. Lashlee's proposal for an expanded 16-team playoff with automatic bids for the Power Four conferences raises another debate. While he frames it as earning it on the field, it's essentially advocating for guaranteed spots based on conference affiliation, a move that could undermine the very fairness he claims to support. The ACC, however, isn't buying it. Commissioner Jim Phillips emphasizes fairness and access, favoring more at-large spots over automatic qualifiers. But here's where it gets controversial. Is Lashlee's stance a genuine push for meritocracy, or a thinly veiled attempt to secure his conference's position? The ACC's momentum, with programs like SMU, Clemson and Miami on the rise, further complicates the narrative. Teams are investing heavily, and the committee's role in evaluating their progress is more critical than ever. Even Florida State, despite past grievances, is moving forward optimistically. So why the push to dismantle the committee now? Here's a thought-provoking question for you. Is the committee truly the problem? Or are critics like Lashlee overlooking its value in navigating college football's complexities? Let's discuss in the comments. Do you think the committee should stay? Or is it time for a change? One thing's for sure, the debate isn't going away anytime soon. Trump versus SEC crisis. Can he save college football from chaos? Imagine a world where the SEC, the powerhouse of college football, is suddenly under threat. This isn't a dystopian nightmare. It's the reality we're facing. The SEC, once the undisputed king of college football, is now facing unprecedented challenges. And who better to save it than Donald Trump? But here's where it gets controversial. The SEC might not be the only conference with a shot at the national championship. The ACC, often overshadowed by the SEC, is making a bold move. And this is the part most people miss. The ACC might just have the depth and talent to challenge the SEC's dominance. Let's dive in. 1. Alabama football. Updated July 26, 2025, 10:30 a.m. Published July 26, 2025, 10:30 a.m. By Joseph Goodman at AL.com. This is an opinion column. All rights stood up test column. This is an opinion column. We need more coaches like Rhett Lashlee college football. Lashlee, the coach at SMU, is uncompromisingly loyal. He boldly claims that the ACC is deeper than the SEC in more ways than just academics and cheating. While many might dismiss Lashlee as a rabid dog with a brain infection, his bold statements can't be ignored. After all, these are unprecedented times for college football. The game has changed, and it's time to embrace the chaos. Exhibit A. Revenue sharing is now a reality in collegiate sports. But be careful what you wish for. Calling players employees could set off a chain reaction that would see American campuses in flames and the Olympics dominated by Russia and China. Exhibit B. President Donald Trump is using women's sports to distract from his latest scandal involving young girls. This is a bold move, but it's also a risky one. The public's attention is fickle, and Trump is playing a dangerous game. Exhibit C, Bill Belichick, the legendary coach, is now coaching at North Carolina and dating someone who could be a student at the school. This is a surprising turn of events, to say the least. Exhibit D, Miami paid a staggering $3 million for Georgia's quarterback Carson Beck after Alabama reportedly turned him down. This is a clear indication of the financial powerhouses that some schools have become. The point is that the landscape of college football is changing rapidly. Who knows what preposterous thing will happen next? SMU making it to the national championship game? Why not? It's almost like this new era of college football was tailor-made for SMU, the most notorious cheater in the history of the sport. Maybe Lashlee is onto something. Lashlee was ridiculed at ACC Media Days for suggesting that his conference is deeper than the SEC. First, let me just point out that I'm thrilled things have worked out for Lashlee, who was one of Bo Nix's 541 offensive coordinators at Auburn. Fun fact, Lashlee started his career as an offensive coordinator at Samford in 2011. Before that, he was a quarterback and grad assistant at Arkansas. He learned under the biggest nerd in college football, Gus Malzahn, which means Lashlee knows how to punching up against big SEC schools. At Auburn, it was Alabama and Georgia. At SMU, Lashlee recruits against Oklahoma, Texas, and Texas A&M. SMU has so much money that it bought its way into the ACC by giving up 9 years of television revenue worth $200 million. It then raised that money over the course of a couple of days, finished second in the ACC in 2024, and made the playoffs over SEC also ran to Alabama, Ole Miss, and South Carolina. It's safe to assume that the Mustangs will be contending for a playoff spot once again. Should SMU have made the playoffs over Alabama? Well, yeah, Alabama was terrible by the end of the 2024 season and lost badly on the road to Vanderbilt and Oklahoma. But wait, here comes a new champion to the rescue. Trump loves SEC football and SEC football loves Trump. Maybe his new executive order will prevent these rogue schools like SMU from outspending the Crimson Tide. But could the ACC actually have more playoff contending teams than the SEC this season? People are laughing, but not me, and definitely not Trump. The list of ACC playoff hopefuls stretches all the way from Dallas to I-95. Belichick is at North Carolina. SMU is coached by a maniac with a stat of blank checks. Miami and Duke both have better